I am the game, Triple H, and you are now running wild with the most underrated wrestling podcast in the world, WellsMania Podcast. And I have one question for you. Are you ready? I said, are you ready? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to WellsMania. Yes, I am WellsMania, the most underrated wrestling podcast in the world. This is episode 204. You know, it's my podcast. I can start it out however the hell I want to start it out. And that right there is just a little taste of a brand new series that I have launched on the WellsMania TikTok. And it is called If I Were Triple H, where I would book WWE storylines and predictions and whatnot if I were Triple H. So if that is something that you are interested in, it's $2.99 on WellsMania TikTok, and I've got 2 subscribers. Shout out to Amanda Olson and Kevin Dininger. You two are 2 of hopefully what will be many to come. And there will also be other features on the subs only WellsMania TikTok. But that right there was just a little taste of If I Were Triple H. This is episode 204 of WellsMania Podcast, and this is a solo episode of WellsMania Podcast. I'm doing things a little bit different here in 2026. Yes, I had Brock Lesnar guy. Wow, that was really cool. I had Brock Lesnar guy on last episode of WellsMania Podcast to kick off 2026. Shout out to Michael Corcoran, Brock Lesnar guy. Hopefully you are all enjoying his Twitch channel, The Brock Lesnar Guy. Hit that subscribe button. Tell him WellsMania sent you. It was a really awesome conversation with Mike. I've known Mike for probably a little over a decade and some change. I still got to figure out when exactly did I come face to face with the Brock Lesnar guy for the first time. It was a long time ago, but I really enjoyed my conversation with Mike, aka Brock Lesnar guy, and I'm going to lob this out to all of you early on in this episode. We're almost 3 minutes in. If you would like to see one of your favorite wrestling content creators or fellow wrestling podcasters on a future episode of WellsMania Podcast, tag them. Let me know in the comments. I would love to interview a lot of you. And trust me, I have already built quite the list of guests that I have lined up for future episodes of WellsMania Podcast. But that is just something that I plan on doing more of, is getting more wrestling content creators on, getting more local independent wrestlers on, of course, aiming for the moon and getting whatever WWE superstars, dare I say AEW superstars. You never know who might pop up on a future episode of WellsMania Podcast. That is the beauty of the most underrated wrestling podcast in the world, which I fly under the radar so much. But I feel like 2026 is going to be the best year yet for the WellsMania brand. And yes, a lot of you have already been asking who is going to be the next guest on WellsMania Podcast. Well, next week for the Royal Rumble show, live from Saudi Arabia, the Royal Rumble, we are going to have WWE Human Encyclopedia Jared Giles. We are going to have Stone Pain Productions and possibly one other person. And yes, I'm keeping the surprise guest reveals very alive in 2026. So next week will be the Royal Rumble episode of WellsMania Podcast, where I do plan on doing the Royal Rumble pool next week live on WellsMania TikTok. So if you are interested in playing in the WellsMania Royal Rumble pool for the men's Royal Rumble and the women's Royal Rumble, hit me up on Twitter at WellsMania. Slide headfirst Pete Rose style into my DMs. That's WWE Hall of Famer Pete Rose. Now, this episode of WellsMania Podcast, I am going to break down Saturday night's main event live this Saturday night in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. at the Bell Center. As of right now, there are only 3 matches, and I will give you my breakdown, my predictions, and what I think is going to happen. But before I do that, it is Royal Rumble season, and I want to say thank you to each and every single one of you who have been participating in my content that I've been putting out there on my WellsMania TikTok, my WellsMania Instagram, my WellsMania Facebook, and Twitter's weird. I don't know what the hell is going on with Twitter, but I feel like that's the only social media platform that is kind of just at a standstill. Don't get me wrong, there are a few of you who actually take the time to interact with me on there, and I appreciate each and every single one of you. But I feel like Twitter just has it's at a standstill. There's like no growth on Twitter. It's weird because I love Twitter. Like Twitter's always been my favorite social media platform, but lately that is now like dropping down the list. I think, TikTok is right there at the top. I've been coming alive a lot more on Instagram. Um, Shout out to Pluggo from Between Two Beards, who had me fill in for JPJ on last week's episode of Between Two Beards, because now I'm getting a lot more wrestling podcasters reaching out to me, wanting me to come on their podcast. So, hey, and it all comes full circle because I definitely, like I said, I want to bring on more wrestling content creators. So, if you would like to come on a future episode of WellsMania podcast, slide into my DMs head first, WWE Hall of Famer Pete Rose style. And let me give some flowers where flowers need to be given, because these guys gave me a shout out on their podcast, and I am talking about the Kicking Out podcast. And I just wanted to say thank you to Tanner Lee, and I believe I wasn't too familiar with who the other guy was because I just briefly interacted with him. But shout out to you guys for mentioning the WellsMania podcast on the Kicking Out pod, which you guys need to check out the Main Event Wrestling Network. Give them a follow on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the social medias. Main Event Wrestling Network, and then the Kicking Out, a podcast about all elite wrestling. Which I'm gonna be real with you, fellas. I'm not the biggest AEW guy. However, maybe this year, 2026, I might watch a little bit more of all elite wrestling. I know it's crazy, but this is more it's more of a WWE driven podcast. I've always been loyal to WWE. I've been a WWE fan my whole life. I even like WCW during the Monday Night Wars. So yes, I did flip the channels back and forth between WWF and WCW, but don't have to worry about that nowadays. We have multiple TVs, multiple streaming services, and a whole bunch of other ways to access it. But this episode of WellsMania podcast, getting you even more hyped for the Royal Rumble. We finally have WWE superstars declaring their participation in the men's and women's Royal Rumble over in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Now, I don't know if you guys are getting the vibes that I've been getting, but I've been seeing the aerial coverage and the footage of the construction and the arena being built from the ground up out there in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for the Rumble. It gives me WrestleMania 9 vibes. When Caesar's Palace was built, the set at WrestleMania 9 was built in the Caesar's Palace parking lot out in Las Vegas for WrestleMania 9 back in 1993. So that's the vibes that I'm getting whenever I see the coverage of the stadium being built out there or over there, way over there in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. But I'm excited. I love the Royal Rumble. I was at the Royal Rumble last year, right here in my home city of Indianapolis, Indiana, Lucas Oil Stadium. I got to be a part of WWE media covering the Royal Rumble for WellsMania podcast and the Hammer and Nigel show on 93 WIBC. I am their official wrestling correspondent. So shout out to Hammer and Nigel. And I had a blast, you know. That's where I got to meet Pluggo and JPJ face to face at the press junket. I also saw the Haroon twins, DC Hendricks. Who else did I see out there? Joey Carney, Sean Ross Sapp, Wheezy Blonde, Denise Salcedo, Chris Van Vliet. So many big names in the wrestling content creator world. And it is an honor for people to even throw my name in the mix with those other talented wrestling content creators. So thank you guys so much for making me feel a part of what we're doing out here covering professional wrestling. Now, I was in the gym. The other day and I thought of something really interesting that ran wild throughout my Hoosier Dome. And I posted this on my WellsMania social medias. And a lot of you have been enjoying the Royal Rumble nostalgia videos that I've been doing. And this one is me thinking about all of the runner-ups who came in second place in the Royal Rumble. And the question then follows, what if they would have won the Royal Rumble? So I'm going to start from the inaugural 1988 Royal Rumble and go all the way to 2025. These are all the runner-ups. So what if these superstars won the Royal Rumble? And then in the comments down below, any names that pop out to you, drop them in the comments below. But 1988, the one-man gang. 1989, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. 1990, Mr. Perfect. 1991, Earthquake. 1992, Sid Justice. 1993, Macho Man Randy Savage. Pinfalls don't count. And yes, I did post a video about how I feel like the Macho Man is the worst Royal Rumble competitor in the history of the Royal Rumble. Now, I know that is not a popular opinion. Don't get me wrong. I love Macho Man Randy Savage, one of my all-time favorites. However, when it comes to the Royal Rumble, just absolutely a terrible competitor. And you can go check those videos out. The Machoverse even responded back on Instagram. So thank you, Machoverse. 1994, we've got co-winners again. Shawn Michaels and Fatu. 1995, the British Bulldog. 1996, Diesel. 1997, Bret Hart. 1998, The Rock. 1999, Stone Cold Steve Austin. 2000, Big Show. 2001, by God, it's Kane. Kane should have won the 2001 Royal Rumble, and I will forever die on that hill. 2002, Kurt Angle. 2003, The Undertaker. 2004, Big Show. 2005, John Cena. 2006, Randy Orton. 2007, Shawn Michaels. 2008 and 2009, Triple H. 2010, John Cena. 2011, Santino Marella. That's a name that jumps out at you. 2012, Chris Jericho. 2013, Ryback. 2014, Roman Reigns. 2015, Rusev. 2016, Dean Ambrose. 2017 and 2018, Roman Reigns. 2019, Braun Strowman. 2020, Roman Reigns. 2021, Randy Orton. 2022, Drew McIntyre. 2023, Gunther. 2024, CM Punk. And 2025, John Cena. It would have been awesome seeing John Cena win here in my home city of Indianapolis, but Jey Uso prevented that from happening. So in the comments below, let me know which of those runner-ups would you have liked to have seen actually win the Royal Rumble for their respective year. Like I said, 2011, Santino Marella. Could you imagine him eliminating Alberto Del Rio? That's probably the worst Royal Rumble winner of all time, Alberto Del Rio. Yeah, I think Santino Marella would have been a better winner in 2011. Just my opinion. Let me hydrate real quick. It's another thing. Excuse me. Apparently, almost 40 years old, hitting puberty. That's another thing when you're doing a solo episode is I'm literally talking, hopefully to you watching, but I'm literally talking to myself right now. So another reason why I'm very appreciative of anybody who's on the other side of this screen right now, listening to me talk to all of you. Thank you so much. It means the world to me. But when I'm looking at the list of runner-ups, Roman Reigns has finished in second place in the Royal Rumble 4 times. I think that's the most. Now I know some of you are probably wondering, well, WellsMania, what about the women's Royal Rumble? Well, I'm glad you asked because I did make a list of the women as well. Women's Royal Rumble runner-ups, if they had actually won the Women's Royal Rumble. 2018, Nikki Bella. 2019, Charlotte Flair. 2020, Shayna Baszler. 2021, Rhea Ripley. 2022, Charlotte Flair. 2023 and 2024, Liv Morgan. 2025, Roxanne Perez. So those are the runner-ups to the Women's Royal Rumble. What if they would have won? Any names jump out to you? Shayna Baszler's name definitely jumps out to me. Someone's name that's on here twice, who I feel like is due to finally win the Women's Royal Rumble, is Liv Morgan. That is my early prediction as of episode 204 of WellsMania podcast. I feel like Liv Morgan is going to win the Women's Royal Rumble. Now, that could change between now and episode 205. Episode 205 next week will be the Royal Rumble prediction show. But as of right now, I just feel like Liv Morgan is going to win the Women's Royal Rumble. Now, we will talk a little bit more about Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez here when we get to Saturday night's main event. But what are y'all thinking about WWE Unreal? Like I said, I'm a sucker for behind the scenes. I really enjoy when we get to go in Gorilla and get to see the behind the scenes of Triple H and, all the creative and the superstars talking out of character. Now, I know some people like when kayfabe is protected. I get that. I totally understand it. But like I said, it's 2026. It's kind of hard to protect kayfabe nowadays, but some people still do a good job of it. And if you're one of those people, I give you all the credit in the world. And I've got the itch. I've got the itch to get back in the wrestling ring. And as somebody who's done a really good job of keeping two characters separate, I'm no stranger to saying this on my podcast, but I do wrestle as Megamondo when I am in that character. I have tried so long to keep it kayfabe, but it's hard to keep it kayfabe when you look just like Megamondo. But as far as like WellsMania and Megamondo, still two separate brands. But I do have the awareness to tell you all that we are the same guy. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe some of you might think we're not. So I guess it's up to you, the viewer, what you believe is real and not real. But WWE Unreal Season 2 running wild on Netflix. I highly recommend it. Season 3 is John Cena's final run, and it will drop this summer, 2026. And I'm already an emotional wreck thinking about going back and rewatching John Cena's final run. Still does not feel like he is done from WWE, but he is done from WWE. So we are at the almost 20-minute mark, and I just greatly appreciate you all for taking the time to run wild with me. Like I said, these solo episodes are going to be shorter. I've gotten a lot of feedback from all of you who have given me your feedback, and a lot of you enjoy the lengthy episodes of WellsMania podcast, but some of you prefer shorter episodes. So for the some of you that prefer shorter episodes, this one's for you. But let's get into Saturday night's main event live this Saturday night in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And as of right now, there are only 3 matches. I'm assuming we will get one more. We usually have 4 matches on the Saturday night's main event card. Let's kick things off with the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions Rhea Ripley and Io Sky versus Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez. I mentioned both of them earlier. Rhea Ripley and Io Sky literally just became the Women's Tag Team Champions, beating the Kabuki Warriors. So to me, I would keep the Women's Tag Team titles on Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. And here's how you do it. It's Royal Rumble season. Liv Morgan has bigger and better things planned than the women's tag team titles. So having her lose here makes sense, but having Roxanne Perez take the pin makes even more sense because we can have some tension between Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez. They are eventually going to turn on one another at some point down the road. I think we start getting a little taste of that in this tag team match. So Roxanne Perez eats the pin. Rhea Ripley and Io Sky retain the women's tag team titles. How about Cody Rhodes, baby, versus Jacob Fatu? And Jacob Fatu came back during the 3 Stages of Hell match and cost Cody Rhodes the undisputed WWE title. Drew McIntyre is the new undisputed WWE champion. So, of course, we've got some bad blood here between Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu. We're live, pal. Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, when you do the game, Triple H's impression, it takes a lot on the pipes to do that impression. But I do it for all of you. You know what? I might sound crazy, but I think Jacob Fatu is going to beat Cody Rhodes. I really do. I don't think that Cody needs the win in this match. I feel like Jacob Fatu, to establish himself as a very credible threat towards Drew McIntyre, I feel like Jacob Fatu beating Cody will do that. And it will definitely put him in the main event picture to be a potential threat to challenge Drew McIntyre for the undisputed WWE title. So with all that being said, I've got Jacob Fatu beating Cody Rhodes. But that's okay because Cody Rhodes will probably enter the Royal Rumble at number 1, QB1 entering at number 1, and be the odds-on favorite to win the Royal Rumble and become a 3-time Royal Rumble winner, joining Stone Cold Steve Austin as the only superstars to ever do that. I will give you my official Royal Rumble prediction on who I think is going to win the men's Rumble next episode of WellsMania podcast. But right now, early favorite, definitely Cody Rhodes, baby. The main event of Saturday night's main event in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, is a undisputed WWE title number 1 contenders fatal 4-way match. Randy Orton versus Trick Williams versus Damian Priest versus Sami Zayn. How over is Trick Williams? My goodness, when his music plays, the whole arena, whoop that Trick. They just lose their mind. He's got aura. I would love to see him do the unthinkable and win this match. However, that is not going to happen. But the fact that he's in this match, that's a great start for Trick Williams. So big things to come for old Trick Willie in 2026. Damian Priest, always a contender. However, he will not be the number 1 contender winning this match. So that leaves Randy Orton and Sami Zayn. Where are we? We're in Canada. Sami Zayn country, Canada and Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. With both of those being said, I feel like Sami Zayn is going to defeat Orton, Priest, and Trick Williams to become the number one contender to go to Saudi Arabia and challenge Drew McIntyre for the undisputed WWE title. Now, here's a told you, I'm hitting puberty at almost 40 years old. Bear with me. Solo episodes, more drinking more before we go live, pal. Or if you are a hydration company out there looking to want to sponsor WellsMania podcast, that would have been a really good place for me to drink your drink. I no longer work for Prime Hydration. Update. So I'm not gonna get lost in that sauce, but your boy's a free agent, so we'll see where the future takes me. But as far as this undisputed WWE title, number one contenders fatal four-way match, I'm going with Sami Zayn to win, and I am not a Sami Zayn guy. I think he's boring. He doesn't do anything for me. I feel like he's a whiny crybaby bitch. But as far as this match goes, I feel like if he can find a way to stop being such a little bitch and actually just go out there and prove that he is deserving to be the undisputed WWE champion, let your actions speak louder than your words, Sami Zayn. Stop cutting these promos where you're whining and crying and complaining. And for the record, fun facts for kids. Sami Zayn has never beat Drew McIntyre. How about that? So you have Sami win this match. He goes to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Sami Zayn country. He's going to have the crowd in the palm of his hand. And if he can't beat Drew McIntyre in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, I don't know when Sami is going to become the champion of the company. So that is those are my predictions for Saturday night's main event. Drop your predictions for Saturday night's main event in the comments. And that is going to do it for this episode of WellsMania podcast. I told you this is going to be a short episode, right around the 30-minute mark. You can follow my WellsMania Pod Clips TikTok account, where I post highlights and clips from each episode of WellsMania podcast, which I started with episode 203 with the Brock Lesnar guy. And a lot of you are really enjoying that TikTok account. So I will, throughout the year, be posting clips and highlights from episodes of WellsMania podcast on that TikTok account, WellsMania Pod Clips. So do me a favor, if you are on the talk, give that account a follow. And I really hope each and every single one of you enjoy Saturday night's main event live this Saturday night in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Next episode of WellsMania podcast will be the Royal Rumble prediction show. And like I said, sometime next week, I also plan on doing the gold tumbler, where I reach in and grab maybe the ping pong balls if I can find them, and reveal what number you get for either the men's or the women's Royal Rumble pool, depending on which one you are playing in. So if you are interested in playing in the WellsMania Royal Rumble pool, DM me on Twitter and we will enter you in, and I will give you more information on the Royal Rumble pool. It's a tradition that I've been doing, man, for quite a while now. So I really look forward to this time of the year. All roads lead to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, that is going to do it for this episode of WellsMania podcast. Thank you all so much for taking the time to run wild with me. Go book me on Cameo at WellsMania. Go to brainbustertees.com and buy all your WellsMania merch. Like I said, anybody who buys a fanny pack, you got a cameo appearance on a future episode of WellsMania podcast. And you can follow me all over everywhere at WellsMania. Tell somebody who might not be subscribed to WellsMania on YouTube to subscribe. Thank you all so much. Until next episode, take care, stay positive, run wild, and dominate the day.